Good afternoon. It is 2:06. We're just a little delayed on starting our 2 o'clock consent agenda. It is April 26th, 2022. We are here for our 2 o'clock consent agenda. Let the record reflect that all three commissioners are here and our executive management team. We are going to start off today with taking item 4I. We're going to have Mr. Jeff McMorris speak to that item if he would like to come forward.
Hello, Jeff McMorris, Commissioner staff. 4I is the Homeward Bound program that Commissioner Kearns has instigated in the last budget. We are working with Volunteers of America, VOA. It's a $20,000 line item to allow people who are here struggling, they need some services, but they may have family, friends, loved ones somewhere in another location who can better serve them. The VOA would do the work of confirming that wherever they end up going, there are people there to receive them and willing to do whatever is needed to be done. And the money would go to VOA. VOA would manage the program. VOA can use the funds themselves, or other nonprofits can get reimbursed from VOA if they spend the money at another firm. This is a program that's modeled after something that's been done in King County. It's been done from San Francisco to New York. Many cities across the nation have used this program. It's been seen very successful to get people to a location where they can best be served.
Great. Any questions or comments for Jeff?
I'll just say thank you to Jeff. You did a lot of the legwork on this and digging up information on best practices. I just thank you very much for all your hard work on this.
Very good. Are there any other items that my fellow commissioners would like to take separately? We just have item 5 is going to be a public hearing, so we'll take that separately. Seeing none, I will look to my fellow commissioners.
So, Madam Chair, I would move that we approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4, and all the sub items appearing thereunder in today's agenda.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, and all sub items as presented on today's agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item number 5 on today's agenda, which is in the matter of declaring surplus and considering the sale of certain county-owned property, Spokane County Assessor's Parcel Number 55192.9031. And we have Deborah Firkins to speak to that.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Spokane County first, could I get a map of that parcel on there? Thank you. Considering declaring surplus, the sale of Assessor's Parcel Number 55192.9031, located at 17408 East Sprague Avenue. Spokane County purchased Assessor's Parcel Number 55192.9031 for $48,250, recorded on June 17th, 1991, under a statutory warranty deed for the future Valley Expressway, also known as the Valley Couplet. This property, per the assessor's records, consists of 17,170 square feet with a current zoning designation of corridor mixed use. The appraisal for the property was done on March 4th, 2022 by Arnie Appraisal Associates for $190,000. The Public Works Department no longer has a use for this property. The county has received an offer from Johnson & Johnson Enterprises LLC in the amount of $190,000 contingent on financing. Notice for this public hearing was authorized by resolution number 22-0219 here to RCW 36.34.090 and RCW 3634-100, posting in the county courthouse and posting twice in the public newspaper, with the first posting at least 10 days before this hearing. The Public Works Department recommends that the Board of County Commissioners surplus parcel number 55192.9031 from county use. The Public Works Department also recommends that the offer from Johnson and Johnson Enterprises LLC for $190,000 contingent on financing be accepted by the board. It is the county's practice to convey property by a quitclaim deed. The board will now take public testimony for and against the advisability of surplusing this property to the county's use and will consider whether to accept the written offer by Johnson and Johnson Enterprises LLC for $190,000 contingent on financing. Oh, you're taking away. Okay. Okay. No contingencies. That's okay. Or any oral offers made at this public hearing. Any oral offer must state any other contingencies and their closing date attached to their offer. The current offer of $190,000 can offer includes $3,800 in earnest money and a closing within 45 days. All other offers, written or oral, must be reduced to writing on the required county form. No offer will be considered which contains a real estate commission to be paid by the county. If the board receives any oral offers during this public hearing in an amount greater than the highest written offer, or in this case, $190,000, then the oral offers shall be reduced to writing and submitted on the required county form to the Spokane County Engineer's Office by 3:30 p.m. tomorrow to be considered a valid offer. If no additional written or oral offers are received at this public hearing, the board at its sole discretion may accept the written offer received. If the highest offer at the public hearing is an oral offer, the board shall continue this matter to the next meeting of the board to make a decision on all the offers presented. If the highest offer is an oral offer and is not reduced to writing as described above, the board, with the agreement of the next highest oral bidder that had been reduced to writing, may accept the next highest bidder's offer. Any offer made today must be returned to Deborah Firkins, me, before 3:30 p.m. tomorrow. And it's now the chair.
Are there any other questions or comments for Deborah? Okay, I'm going to just double check because I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. So I'm going to open the public hearing on just surplusing the property, close that public hearing, and then I'll open another public hearing on the purchase to see if there's any other offers.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that I've got that straight. Okay, so at this time, I am going to open the public hearing on the fact that we are going to surplus and to take testimony on the advisability of surplusing this property. First call for anyone wishing to testify regarding surplusing this property. Second call, third call. I will close the public hearing for the purpose of surplusing this property. And look to my fellow commissioners.
Madam Chair, I would move that in the matter of declaring surplus and considering the sale of certain county-owned property, Spokane County Assessor's parcel number 55192.9031, that we accept the recommendation of the county engineer and surplus this property.
I will second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That will take us to the second part of our public hearing. So the board will now receive any oral offers from individuals wishing to purchase this property in excess of $190,000. Any offer must also state any other contingencies that they may have and their closing date attached to their offer. So I'll open the public hearing on taking any other bids. And I do have two people wanting to testify. Ms. Jennifer Johnson, if you would like to come up and testify.
Continuously since 2013 to buy this property. So I would much love to have it. It connects to the piece I already own. It's just makes sense that it all goes together in one corner. I own Jennifer's Auto Sales in the Spokane Valley also, and that was my original car lot. And I have a lot of feelings about that old, it was a railway station originally. It was the Green Acres Railway Station, the whole, where the railroad track goes behind. So I think it would be a lovely corner to do something with, anyway. And I've already written an offer and we've already put the $3,800 with a closing attorney. It's already
Okay.
done.
Very good. Thank you.
Madam Chair, would you permit a question?
Yes.
Ma'am, before you leave?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. I note in the purchaser contingencies that none of those boxes are checked, but it was mentioned earlier that there was some contingencies here.
No, I have a check with me right now if you want it.
Right. I just want to make sure you're making it very clear. You have no contingencies. You're asking for no contingencies. All right. Thank you very
Zero.
much.
Mhm.
And I'm sure the resolution will need to reflect that. It's incorrect as it's published. So it says that there were some contingencies.
Okay. So you'll be able to make that correction that there is no contingencies in the resolution. Okay. I also have Mike King wishing to testify. I apologize. I should have you state your name and address for the record, and we do have yours. So thank you, Jennifer.
I'm Mike King. I'm with Berkshire Hathaway Commercial Real Estate in the Valley. I'm working with Jennifer on this. I am the one that put the financing on there because she was out of town. So I just put it down there. So that's the answer. She's been working to buy this forever.
So does that mean you're financing the deal? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony, both of you. Is there a second call for anyone wishing to testify? Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify or for any other bids on this property? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and discussion by the commissioners, for the written offer in hand, and look to a motion from my commissioners.
All right. Did you have anything you wanted to say? Okay, Madam Chair, seeing no bids, I would move that we accept the offer from Ms. Johnson as presented today, and that we authorize staff to move forward with the sale and disposal of this property. And I also, for the record, as part of the motion, acknowledge that this offer comes with no contingencies.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. I know that corner well, and so I'm very excited for you. Okay, with that, that concludes our 2 o'clock agenda. We have a few other items that we will continue back in our public hearing room or in our public conference room. We are going to just stop here and sign some documents. And so I would say we'd be back over in about 5 minutes over into our conference room, and then we will get started for the rest of our meeting this afternoon. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to the continuation of our 2 o'clock meeting. Today is April 26th, 2022. Let the record reflect that all 3 commissioners are here in the room and our executive management team. We are going to move an item, our executive session that's scheduled for 3:20. We are going to move that to now. And it is anticipated to last for 10 minutes. It's with Ashley Cameron regarding labor negotiations, RCW 42.30.140. Bracket 4. We will be meeting again for 10 minutes. If we need to extend, we will let you know. And then we will, do not anticipate any.
I do not anticipate any action.
Okay, any action being taken? Our attorney, Mark McLean, our civil attorney, will be in the room with us as well. And so we will now go into executive session for 10 minutes and come out and then reconvene the meeting.
Commissioner Cuny, Josh Grow will also be joining us in executive session.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay. concluded our executive session. We are back in our regular meeting. We did extend for, it was a total of 30 minutes total, so 3:17, it's 3:16, so we're just a minute early. As we get back to the meeting. So with that, let's see, we will start with Erin. Erin's there, Gertel from our fairgrounds.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, commissioners.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being patient with us.
My pleasure. Multitasking's good.
That's right.
Okay, well, I shouldn't take too much of your time today. I just wanted to bring to your attention that the lodging tax agreement with the city of Spokane Valley is on the May 3rd consent agenda for your approval, if you do concur with that agreement.
Any questions for Erin? Erin, I'm just, have we done this before? Is this like just a renewal, or is this new, or?
It is something in the 17 years I've been with the Fair and Expo, we have been awarded a grant each year. And it's an annual grant that we present on in October to the Lodging Tax Committee.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Erin? No. Great. Thank you. And how much is the grant for?
For $64,000.
Okay, and has it traditionally been that kind of same amount?
Yeah, it's ranged between around 40 as high as 75,000. And we use it to market the interstate fair and market our year-round events.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay,
your
great.
work.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Have a good afternoon.
thanks. So then, since Commissioner French, I'm going to give you the option since you have to leave. Which on the agenda would you want to make sure we get to, since we have 10 minutes?
Already know about that. How about if we go ahead and deal with the Ukrainian resident relocation grant application?
We can take care of that first. I
All
don't
right.
know you.
I will
introduce
cue this up. So last week, the commissioners were made aware of a Department of Commerce grant opportunity for counties only to apply. And it is specific to providing stabilization support for Ukrainian refugees who are coming into our community as a result of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. We met with us today is Boris Borisov, and Boris is the pastor of the Pacific Keep Church in the community here. He's also been leading up an effort working with a number of other entities or a number of other individuals on the Ukrainian Relief Coalition. Boris will go through and share a little more context around the Slavic community representation that we have today. I think it's pretty impressive. I didn't realize there was that number in our community, and also share more about the need and the requests that he's making, and that we have the ability to support the grant application, but I thought it'd be helpful to get some additional context from Boris. So welcome, Boris.
Well, thank you so much for having me, commissioners and other members. As Scott said, my name is Boris, and for a long time I was a city planner working on economic development, and then I felt the call to be a pastor. I didn't know I'd be doing more resettlement and refugee work, but I also didn't ask for the Ukraine war. So, there's about 50,000 Slavic people in Spokane. It's about 10% in the county, 10% of the population. 1990, I came when I was 5. I'm from Ukraine myself, and Mykolaiv, a city that's under bombardment right now. And so because we're first generation immigrants, when this war broke out, everybody I talked to, myself including, I have a buddy named Anton fighting Russian tanks right now. So I feel lucky that I get to apply for grants and figure out other ways to help and not run for my life. And so because we're first gen, pretty much everybody knows somebody who's either been killed, who's fighting, who's fleeing. And so lots of refugees moving, and because Spokane is such a large community in terms of the Slavic population here, of course, we all have family members and friends that are there who fled to Poland, other countries, who've actually made their way to the Mexican border. I was there about 3 weeks ago, and saw the hundreds of people. It was exponential growth getting through the border in Tijuana. Because there was no official process at that point, they're getting what's called humanitarian parole. And then they're making their way up here to live with family or friends who've been here for 30 years already. These are refugees who, as one person told me from Kiev, I woke up, I was going to go to university, and then there's a bomb that landed next door. So I got my kids up and we fled. So it's not choice, there's not their choice to be here, but they're here and they want to work, they want to get employed, they're chefs, they're computer programmers, they're people who really just want to start a new life. And so we put together, we immediately met 2 days after the war started with about 8 of the biggest Slavic churches in town that probably collectively between us have 6,000 members. And we put together a letter addressing our faith partners in the community, how they could pray. But we also put together this thing called the Ukrainian Relief Coalition. And at first it was this loose team and we're like, hey, whatever needs we hear. Our first 3 weeks, we just collected money and humanitarian aid that we shipped to Ukraine. But then as refugees started coming here, we started just to resettle them sort of on a volunteer basis because they were humanitarian parole. There were no funds associated from the federal government. So right now we've had about 100 families have already arrived. That's close to 400 people. We know this based off of our legal workshops that we run every week for them. We have sign-in sheets, so we're guesstimating about 350 to 400 people are already here, with probably a few hundred more over the next 30 to 60 days. Our biggest issue has been getting them housing. It's tight. We know this. That even if they weren't refugees, it's tight for normal people. And so we started working on giving them housing, letting them figure out life, getting their kids registered for school, things like that. But also we've collected stuff that they need. We've put together an email list, which has over 166 partners now signed up. And we say, hey, this week we need these clothes. You can drop them off at this warehouse. So we're getting organized. We fundraised. And the big issue that came to the forefront at the beginning of last week was what are we going to do with long-term housing, or at least for the next month or two? And then this grant dropped from Commerce, on Wednesday, and the application opened Friday. And we were in discussion with some resettlement nonprofits in town who have the mechanisms to do something like receive a grant like this. And we said, well, what if we apply for this? And maybe it's a combination of housing vouchers, but we're also in conversation with an investor who has a hotel that's sitting right now that's vacant. And we thought, if we get a master lease for that hotel, use some of these funds that has 150 rooms, that could be a really quick solution for the next couple of months. And that way we're not dumping the whole 100 people into the market. We're letting them live there for a little while we're figuring out some of these other things. So our coalition meets weekly, and we really have 3 goals. 1 is to send aid over there. 2 is to help people resettle over here. And then 3 is sort of education and lobbying. So we provide them education as to here's all the steps you got to take asylum and claim it. We've created a Viber group, which is a messaging app. We have over 360 members on that from these families who've come, and we update them in Ukrainian and Russian, here's the latest from the State Department. Here's what you need to do. But we're also lobbying, we met with Senator Murray's reps last week saying, hey, why is the work authorization 4 to 5 months for them to work? They could work tomorrow, right? Can we shorten that, much like we did with the Afghan refugees, where they got a quicker process? Because these people are working age and they want to get involved. So we're doing all this stuff. And as this opportunity with Commerce came up, I immediately reached out to the commissioners because I thought we're organized enough and we have this sort of church volunteer network where we can provide food, clothing, furniture. We can provide ESL classes. We can do all that kind of stuff. But these funds would help stabilize the housing piece and also help us maybe hire a few coordinators just to get this work off the ground a little bit more at a sustainability level. The other really important point is we're not recruiting anybody. It's all based on who's already here in terms of 50,000 Slavics in Spokane, and regardless of what happens, these connections, they will be coming. The question is, do we provide some assistance? And Commerce, given this opportunity last week, we thought it would be a no-brainer to at least make an attempt. So. Really much would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I think I can speak on behalf of the Slavic community. We feel Spokane has been super generous, the county, the city, the region over the last 30 years. I grew up here. We feel a blessing to be here, and thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
So what is it you need for us?
Well, the county is the only entity that can apply for these funds,
Okay,
the way Congress wrote it.
okay.
And then they can subcontract to a group. And so we're asking for you to apply, and then we'll work with partners to figure out how to ensure the funds are used properly.
And do we have to open this up for public comment so we can take an action?
No,
Not
not yet.
Not yet.
Yes.
2 months. So I guess I have, well, I know you gotta get going, but so some of my questions are, so it's a commerce grant and what is it specifically for? I guess that's one of my questions.
I can help with that. So this is a fairly unrestricted pot of money. There are 2 phases. The first one, which we're trying to meet for the first allocation, but it is to rapidly deploy flexible funds to support and stabilize newly arriving refugees from the Ukraine-Russia conflict, for which the counties at their discretion, so no RFP process is required, may choose to subcontract grant funds with one or more multiple nonprofits.
Okay, and so for grant, we don't need to all, I mean, I think we're all gonna agree, but I mean, we don't have to make a motion to apply for a grant, we just apply for the grant.
Correct.
And
And
then
upon award, you would need the
Then
resolution
you
to
need
receive
the
the funds.
Okay,
Just,
so.
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Thank you.
How much
are we applying for?
So we are applying for the first fiscal year, which closes this June and needs to be expended by this June, which Boris has said they'll be able to do $1 million. And then for fiscal year 2023, which would begin July 1st, we're requesting $2 million. 80% of both of those disbursements would go directly to programming costs. So out into the community, 10% would be to support the staff that Boris talked about. And the other 10% would be administrative costs just for all of that, plus any sort of reporting requirements or metrics they need to do on behalf of us as the county to support the grant allocation.
so that's the only piece that is, I don't know, are there other organizations you said you're working with that kind of handle some of this?
Yeah, so the URC, the Ukraine Relief Coalition, we're experts with the cultural aspect of it, right? We can tap all the volunteer networks. We've been talking to Thrive International, which is a resettlement agency in town. We've worked on other things with World Relief. We've talked to a lot of partners. We feel like there's a couple that really could do this, and then we've talked to them, they're ready to go. Obviously, we want to be careful in our application because we want to be fair and everything. But yeah, there are people and partners on the ground where it'd be us as a coalition. We would become essentially the advisory board and the network board for all of the volunteers in the Slavic churches, plus some professional organization, nonprofit with experience in resettlement that would do sort of the mechanical pieces. We would not take all of that on by ourselves. We're a coalition, so it's about partnerships, really.
Boris is here because the coalition would not directly receive funding, so we wanted him to share with you. But there is a network of firms that would be eligible for funding, and we want to keep that kind of agnostic at this point because the grant itself is on behalf of the county.
Very good.
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I think.
Go for it. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Support. We all say at the coalition, it's like, we wish we were here. We wish this, there was no need for this. But we appreciate all the support.
No, well, it's just sad to watch how communities are being destroyed.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a long-term effect to get people if they want to go back.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Boris. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for taking your time to come
Oh,
see us.
absolutely. See ya.
Okay, so next on our agenda, we have Jeff Morris and Aaron.
We're gonna go over the first 2 categories, RFPs that closed a week ago. And the committees have met to give you guys an update on the short list. The first one I'll discuss is category 5.11, which was the drinking water transmission and distribution category. We had a 4-person committee that evaluated the applications. Myself, Arian, the county's program manager for ARP, Erica McCowan, the county's grants administrator, and Jerry Gimmel, who's a former county CEO, also has a background in public works, which made sense for this category. The county received 10 total applications. One application was ineligible due to ARP rules. They wanted to pay down debt, and that is not an allowed category for these funds. So there were 9 left to look through. We're recommending the top 3 move forward. And it's not like the Olympics medal stand where 3 is a magic number. That's just where the natural break was. We had 3 that scored above 90 on a 100-point scale, and then it went down to mid-70s. So with that being a natural cutoff, we're recommending the top 3. Many that scored lower was they're either in a preliminary stage, they weren't anywhere near shovel ready. And the RFP was looking for projects that are ready to happen this year. Some were geared more towards lead pipe remediation, water source, or water storage issues, of which there are separate ARP categories for. So if they applied to this one, it's the only one out right now, but they couldn't measure up against the others that were more direct transmission. So the top 3, the number 1, Ron can throw it up, is Whitworth Water District. Number 2 was the top scoring application. The Trentwood Irrigation District, which is out on Trent, kind of in your Pine Sullivan area on Trent. And then the Irvin Water District, which is across the river from the Hutton settlement roughly. So it's the south side of the river. It would be east of Millwood, but kind of between the freeway and the river. Those are the areas. Whitworth, I think everybody knows that area. Those are the 3 that scored the highest. You'll see the total project cost. We did have a 35% max that we would fund towards the project. So you can see Whitworth came in 29% of their total project. The Trentwood and Irvin are smaller projects, and they came in right at 35%. The commissioners did put $4 million into this category. So the committee is recommending you add $105,100 and fully fund these 3 projects. Questions, feedback?
Looks great. Thank you guys for your hard work, and pass along our thanks to Jerry Gimmel, whoever he is.
So then we will, next week, you'll see on consent, both an amendment. Everything we do with ARP on the categories is amending that first resolution. So you'll see an amendment to increase the category and amount and to accept these 3, and then they will move to the contract stage. And then you'll see them again when the contracts are approved. The second category was the category 2.25, which is addressing educational disparities, academic, social, and emotional services. We had put $5 million into that category. The committee for that application was myself again, Erica McCowan again, our grants administrator, Mike Sparber, the County Senior Director of Law and Justice, and Kent Nichols, the County Senior Director of Community Affairs. We only had 1 application. Arian has worked for that group recently, and so she was recused herself from sitting in on that process. So that applicant is the Inovia Foundation, specifically their Launch Northwest initiative. The committee just met this morning. Our preliminary scores deemed them as meeting the criteria to move forward. We did have 10 or 12 questions we forwarded them around some of their budget presentation and some of their community connections if there's MOUs in place. We fully expect them to have good answers for us. Well, we'll wait and see. I just heard from Victor in purchasing. He just got those questions to them a couple hours ago. So we probably will hear from them later this week. Once we get those questions back, the committee will reconvene just to make sure everything looks good. And so that one also could be ready for you guys to approve next week. The project that they're proposing is really, they would serve more as an umbrella entity, working with a lot of nonprofits throughout the community. It would start with some asset mapping, data analysis to find where there are service gaps, people who are not receiving services they need. The end goal is to have higher graduation rates at the lower area high schools, higher percentage of kids going either to higher education or being vocational ready through those sorts of programs. To get some of these students ready, they will work with nonprofits to enhance what's happening with wraparound services where those might be needed in their schooling years. So some of the funding would be funding the administrative cost of the program. The majority of the funding, if you think back to the CARES dollars, and GSI was an umbrella organization for some of the businesses. Innovia Launch Northwest would kind of serve a similar umbrella role where there could be nonprofits who they could sub grant on to, depending. The goal is to have a regional perspective. Erin and I spoke to many groups over the last month and a half. A lot of groups were aware this was open, but we just didn't have the one application. They did request the full 5 million. So I think that could be up to that amount, depending on their answers to these other questions. So any comments, feedback on that one? And we will keep moving forward with those. The CLA, the program we're trying, or I guess we are purchasing, is in contract negotiations there, or just in a contract signed. We're wanting to get that in place before we put out any more RFPs. But we are hoping in early May to get some more RFPs out. The next 4 we're looking at doing, unless you guys have a different priority order, would be category 1.6, which is the medical expenses category of 300,000. 1.14, which is the other public health services, which is 2.4 million. 5.8 is the clean water conservation category, which has 2 million. And then 520, which is the broadband other category that was just recently added. Those are the 4. Probably wouldn't do all 4 of them the same week, but of the first few weeks in May, get a couple of them going and then get the other 2 going, unless you guys have other priorities.
What was the dollar amount for the broadband?
The broadband is a $3 million pot. And it's an other, so it's for broadband services. We have 5 million in the pot, which is the matching funds. So if we can get a large grant through the state or some of the infrastructure federal dollars coming through the federal agencies, that 5 million would be the 10% match. Generally, if you get 20 million, you need to match 2. That's the basic formula. But we have had a lot of broadband conversation the last few months. And there's been some things that come up that don't fit inside that match. And so the decision was made to put some more flexible broadband funding. Concerns or reprioritizations you would like to see? And I think that's just by way of FYI, Gary this morning submitted our first quarter report. So our January through March report to the feds. It was due the end of the month, so we got it in a few days early. And that one is good to go. And then Erin had a couple more updates, I believe, around the website.
Yes. So this is more of an FYI that's coming out in the next couple of weeks. We are, and if you want to, Ron, you can go to the ARP website, or we can just talk about it. What we're doing is we're fashioning it so that any open RFPs are on the landing page. And then once an RFP closes, it moves to another category that says closed RFP, so that the community understands what we've been cycling through. We are taking the idea portal that is still active and calculating the list by number of topics onto the informal ARP repository, so that the community can see we've had 7 ideas in water distribution network or different. So they're beginning to see what you're seeing as far as interest in the communities for needs and awareness. The one thing that we are going to kind of try to work on with Jared and his staff is a way that as we begin awards, we not only share awards that were direct allocations from ARP funding, but requests that came in that were found funding from other sources. so that the community can see what's being funded that might have come in as an ARP idea, but we really found a better fit in another area. So all of those things is what we're desiring to do. As we get the CLA application up, just for clarifications, the front door for being able to respond is still going to go through public purchase, which is managed by procurement. Anyone who has done a idea submission to date will automatically receive an email saying this RFP is released. We are not trying to pre-vet those, so the idea recipient can decide whether or not they want to apply to that RFP. It's not us deciding whether or not it fit into their category. Once it goes through the public purchase, then that second door will be through the ARP portal repository. So that's kind of how the mechanism will work going forward.
Thank you. So thank you. Okay, so then that's going to take us to Gary with the financial update.
Thank you, commissioners. This is a presentation we just put together last week with staff. They've come up with some great ideas for a template going forward in terms of future communications and to add on to what we're presenting here. So on the first page, just the memorandum page, just the highlights here, for instance, for the general fund, we ended up collecting about just shy of $40 million for the first 3 months this year, first quarter. And we spent about $50 million. And that's not unusual. In fact, it's actually doing pretty good because most of our first half property tax collections don't come in until the end of this month and will be reflected in the next quarterly report. So one of the things that stand out, obviously, and it's here in the letter, is that we had the sale of the 8th Avenue building, and that also added to our total revenue to the tune of about $4.7 million. So I just want you to keep those numbers in mind as we look through some of the numbers on the second page. So the format of this is to show at a glance some numbers that are pertinent to the general fund and get a pulse for where we're at. The left-hand column of numbers just shows in descending order what we've budgeted in the major categories of revenue and then what we've realized year to date for the first 3 months. And then the next column is our comparative with 2021. And then the third column is the difference column. So our largest category is, as we budgeted, and we knew that going into the 2022 year, was now sales and use tax over and above the property tax. And here we budgeted $68.5 million, and we've received $17.5 million, which is running ahead of schedule. Now, the column on the right-hand side focuses a little bit more on the sales tax. And we're doing very, very well in that. Projections are running ahead of budget, and our collections over last year for the same quarterly period are up 12%, which equates to about $2 million. So we're up $2 million over where we were last year at this time. And last year was a very good year in terms of collection of sales tax. So the next little box down just shows where our forecast is going to be on a monthly basis, and it's pretty healthy, and it's stabilizing between the $5 to $7 million a month mark. So at this point in time, we're projecting that we will exceed what we have right now in the budgeted for that category, probably in the range of around 70 million. That could change, obviously, as economics change. So the next category, of course, is self-explanatory, the property tax. We've only collected $337,000 out of a budgeted $65.4 million. And there's nothing to be gleaned from that. However, out of usually the budgeted amount 65, we'll collect probably 53 to 55% of that amount in the first half collections. The next charges for services, you can just read down that. I won't go through all of the categories, but you can see in descending order, and then you're getting to the bottom of that first column box. And we had budgeted total revenues of 233 million and received about 40 million. And last year comparative is 199 for budget and 30 million. And I'll explain a little bit more of that when we get to the expenditure side. And then the bottom half of that first page just shows on a scale, a graphic scale, budget to actual for first quarter 22 versus the same representation for 21. And then I just go to the next page here, and then this is the substance of which we were looking at for tracking expenditures for that in the general fund for the same period. So on the left-hand side, we again categorized each of the pertinent categories and shown the same information, budget and year-to-date actual. And the largest category, of course, is salaries and wages, and then combined with employee benefits, that's a significant category. And then supplies, services, government transfers, capital, and so forth. But the one nice takeaway there is that on that, in the 2022 column, it shows we budgeted $237 million and we spent about 50 million. So we're only 21% of the budget, which is 4% lower than the extrapolated amount of 25%, which represents the time frame. On the right-hand side shows each of the agency breakdowns. And there's no real concern there. Most of them are all within that 25% range, except for some anomalies like emergency communications because of the timing of payments going out, and some outside agencies. And again, we've only spent about 50 million out of the 237.8 million. And the last two boxes on the sheet, if you want to roll that up, Ron, just a graphical representation of 22 versus 21. Now we'll let you know that the numbers here are a little bit skewed in 21 because we put the jail as a department into the general fund. So in 22, where it wasn't in 21. So those numbers don't have a lot of comparability at this time. But the main takeaways, I guess, is that we have done very well so far for the first quarter of this year. And as the auditors, internal auditors here are preparing our 21 results of operation, what we're working for then is to add to this piece of information along with 2021 actual comparatives to present to you where our projections will be for the end of 2022 and start the basis for discussions on our 23 budget process. So to that end, I'd encourage you to take a look at some of your calendars. We would like to start coordinating efforts where we can meet and have some workshops and maybe even some one-on-ones and discuss the future formats going forward and any additional things that you'd like to see on a regular basis. So once we get past the second quarter of 22, we'll start supplementing this with monthly information so that when you get to the second half of 22, we'll be putting our finger on the pulse a little bit more frequently and making more frequent reports to the board so you understand exactly where we're at at any given time. And that coincides with how we go into the budget process for 23.
Thank you. So I apologize. I have a 4 o'clock meeting that I need to get to. So it's like one of those days that we're all just like.
I'm here.
So guys, we'll keep you working then. If anyone has any miscellaneous items, we will let Josh.
Sorry to take so long for the presentation.
Oh, no, I apologize that we're kind of speeding. I feel like we're speeding through. It's like it was a busy afternoon for everyone. So lots going on. So, okay, any other items?
Chair, do you have one miscellaneous?
June 20th, I've been working with the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture for an employee night. Does June 23rd work for the commissioners? If we follow the same situation we did last time, it was 5 to 8. We had 2 simultaneous groups for tickets because they do have a capacity. We were sold out last time, and I think with the great exhibit that they have here, the DreamWorks exhibit, we'll rock that one out again.
What time does it start?
We 5 to 8.
5 to 8.
Yeah,
Is it June 23rd?
correct. It's a Thursday night.
Sounds good.
I got something at 7 that night, but I can be there for the first part.
Yeah, you could just be there for the first part, yeah. Okay, and I will move forward and
I would let you close out the meeting.
We're losing quorum.
We're not going to make any decisions, so you just need to you can just listen and
I think we're good if everyone, I don't, got anything else for the good of me, I guess.
I'm gonna raise.
Few things could be shut up.
All right. Okay, well, if that's it, then it is 3:52 and we are adjourned for the day.
Didn't catch that last time, Scott?